Hello everyone, and welcome to this new sneak peek review of Xen Orchestra 5.72. It's already that time again. It's summer, at least in our hemisphere. So today we have pretty much a lot of new things to cover, and I will let Olivier introduce you all the new stuff in Xen Orchestra.
Thank you, Mark. So welcome for this new release, 5.72. So as Mark said, there's a lot of interesting stuff that is moving on. We will start with the backup-related thing that we call the faster backup merge. So in very short, we started to introduce a new way to store files when we are doing backup. And we did that for the S3 backup storage, where the fact to store a VHD file wasn't really, let's say, very powerful or even fast. So we decided for S3 originally to split each VHD file into 2 megabyte block, which is the block size inside a VHD file, and to store them. And by doing this, we also realized that we could use this way to split a VHD file to small blocks, and to just, when we want to do a merge, when the oldest delta has to be merged into the initial full, instead of reading entirely the whole delta file and read partly the full file, we could rely on just moving blocks around. So we have basically a file that is acting like a block allocation table, pointing to each block of 2 megabytes. And then when we want to do merge, basically what we do is to rename or remove all the blocks. And this way it's very, very fast. So we decided to, why not use that way to store the backup files instead of VHD for not only S3 but also the rest. Well, we managed to do that, but obviously there's a catch, because storing a 2 megabytes block file might use a lot of files on your file system, obviously. To give you an example, on X4 file system, there's only 4 billion file max could be created, which means it's only 8 terabyte worth of VHD data, and in reality, probably if you are not using less, since you might use this X4 file system for, let's say, other files. So that's why, if you want to try this mode, you can check the box on the bottom on this screenshot we made. But be advised that if you are using ZFS or ButterFS, that would be probably safer than doing that on X4, except if you have a very, let's say, small amount of data to backup. So please use this with caution, but I'm pretty sure you will see that the merge time will be almost now limited to a few seconds only. So that's nice, and that also opened the doors to more improvement in the future, both on the storage side in Xen Orchestra, but maybe also on backup speed. More on that probably this summer. The next thing is, let's say, a big quality of life improvement related to IPv6. So basically, the deploy script we use through CLI or through the Xen Orchestra deploy page, we're only listening for an IPv4 address, but sometimes you are deploying Xen Orchestra virtual appliance with an IPv6 only. So in that case, now we could manage that. So if you have both dual stack, this will obviously continue to work, only IPv4 too. But now, if you only have IPv6 for your Xen Orchestra appliance, it will work out of the box to deploy, and Xen Orchestra could then be only on IPv6, no problem. So that's it for the deploy with IPv6. The next large chunk is regarding Xen Orchestra proxies. So as you know, a proxy was made initially to be related to backup, so to avoid you useless back and forth in terms of transfer if you want to back up on a remote site with a local to the remote site, let's say NFS. So we created the proxies that are kind of headless Xen Orchestra appliances. But since we started to do that, we realized we could do more with it. And more means we already announced the fact to act like a real proxy for your Xen Orchestra, avoiding to expose your multiple XCPNGs to the world when they are to distant sites. So to help you to do that, we display the URL of the proxy directly into the proxy configuration. So you could use that to copy and paste it in the settings server view of Xen Orchestra to add a cluster directly through this URL, and also to have a better way to control which version we release of the proxy. Previously, we had only a channel dedicated to the proxy. Now we got two channels that are in fact the same that we use to release Xen Orchestra, the main Xen Orchestra appliance. So that's stable and latest. So now everything is sync. So if you are using stable channel, then your proxies and your XOA will run on stable, and the same if you are running latest, then both XOA and proxy will run on latest, which is really convenient. So you could test maybe next features before it goes unstable, or if you want to just stay unstable, at least you have the guarantee that the proxy will use a code that's made for this stable branch for both Xen Orchestra and the proxy. So that's it for the proxy. Let's go regarding the storage. So this one is a really interesting, I would say, automation feature. In short, so let me give you a simple example. You have, for example, one NFS machine that is running all your virtual machine disk, which is okay. You probably have backup, so it's not a big deal to have a SPOF, especially in modern hardware where you have two PSUs, a stack of switches, LACP, and so on. So the risk is low. But the only downside of running this is if you want to, I don't know, have some maintenance on that NFS machine, what you need to do right now and before this release of Xen Orchestra was to shut down the VMs that are using a disk on this storage, then disconnect the PBDs and then do the maintenance. Then when it's available again, reconnect the PBDs to all your hosts and finally start the VMs. So the thing is, that would have been great to get some automation on top of that. And that's why we did it. And in short, in your storage view, if you want to put it into maintenance mode, it will tell you that you have VMs running on with disk on top of it. So if you said, okay, it will shut down those virtual machines automatically and it will disconnect all the PBDs. And when you have done with maintenance, it will reconnect it. So it's far less burden when you want to make those upgrades on your storage side. And you have the guarantee that you will not, shut down something if you still have a VM running on it, which is the most problematic thing if you do manually the process, because maybe you forgot one VM that is connected to the storage, and then that will be a problem for the virtual machine itself. But remember, if you interrupt the connection of an NFS share on XCPNG, then in general, that's not great, because until it's going back connected, then you will have a lot of messages and errors and so on. So this is more also than automation, but also protection to be sure you won't forget any VM that has to be shut down if you do some maintenance on the storage repository. Then it's related to the REST API. So we heard you, and we had more and more users relying on the REST API, which is really great. The only thing is, to enjoy it, you need to generate a token, and generating a token had to be done through XOCLI, which is sometimes a bit boring. If you don't have to install it, to configure it, and then to get the token with the right syntax and so on. So right now we made this so you don't need to use anything else than the web UI to generate your token. So with this token, and you could put an expiration date and a description, it means then you could get it, you could copy paste it directly into your clipboard, and with it then you can use it with the REST API directly. So no more need to do back and forth with XOCLI and whatsoever. So that's exactly the goal we had with the REST API, to have a tool that is really easy to get to build whatever you want to build on top of our API. So that's a great addition to the existing Xen Orchestra interface, and I hope you will like it. But on my side, I'm already using it, and I really like it. Next topic is related to let's say non-admins use cases where you are using ACLs or self-service. Until now, if you weren't an admin user in Xen Orchestra, you couldn't be able to see any task related to whatever task you are doing. For example, you have permission on a VM and you want to export it, then you won't see the export task because it will be hidden for you. So that's what we fixed in this version, is to be able to automatically know that if the task is created by a user with a permission on the VM, then you will be able to see the task running, which is a feature that was asked by our users, mainly relying on self-service or ACLs. And finally, a blog post that is already out. So Mark, if you want to maybe...
Yeah, of course. So we discussed a lot about it in the previous release, but as you know, we are currently working on the next version of Xen Orchestra 6. And to do so, we are first working on the new piece of software that we are creating, Xen Orchestra Lite. And to do so, we're working with a UI UX designer called Clémence. So we promised last month that we were going to create a dedicated blog post to introduce you all the reflection, all the work that we are doing around these two new Xen Orchestra version. And this DevBlog is now available for you, and it's a deep knowledge of what Clémence is doing around the UI and UX, and it's very interesting to understand some choices that are currently being made around the conception of the next version of Xen Orchestra. So of course, everything has been done with careful attention. We ask a lot of feedback to you, the users, the community, and also the customers, and we are now making things work in that way, that in the way that the next version will include everything that has been requested and will be accessible, and a lot of more consideration are being made around that. So it's a very good blog post to understand more UI and UX design, but it's also a great way to have some sneak peek of the first screenshot of Xen Orchestra Lite. So it's already available on the blog post, on the Xen Orchestra blog, so feel free to provide us some feedback on that too.
Okay, I think that you told everything that needs to be told. So I think that's a wrap for this release. Expect it to be available in the next hours, something like that, maybe a bit less, but you will have the email in the evening at worst. So stay tuned, and that's it to me.
Thank you, everyone. See you on the next release, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.